Good morning. I'm Randy, and I'm here with Jeremiah, and we discuss life's hard financial questions, and we're here to help you make decisions about your money.
Randy and I are both certified financial planners, and I'm also a California licensed attorney. All right, for this section, we're talking about good idea, bad idea. So my buddy at work told me I need to max out my deferred comp. I need to max out my retirement. Is that a good idea or is that a bad idea?
Well, it depends. I'm going to give you your answer. It depends, right?
The lawyer answer,
Because
yeah.
there's a lot of factors that go into it, and I think probably the key factor, if it's younger, and for some people that are maybe in their 50s, I'd like to see an emergency fund set up, and we typically like 3 to 6 months set aside money in instant available liquidity, so typically bank accounts or money market accounts. But at the same point in time, if they're not putting money into retirement accounts, that's a factor too. I want to make sure they're doing something. So
Yeah.
until we get that emergency funds, I would have a tendency to kind of utilize both of them to get there, right?
Yeah. This is a question I get a fair amount. It usually comes from a younger employee
Right.
who heard from an older employee, hey, you need to be maxing this out. And I think that advice is well said. They're trying to protect the younger guy, they're trying to or gal, they're trying to make good advice. But often it's because the person who's a little bit older didn't do enough when they should have, and they feel behind, and they look back and say, man, if I was in your age, if I was a man or woman in this job at 38 or 40, man, if I'd have been so much better shape. You just got to max it out. That's what you got to do. And unfortunately, what that person who's trying to give some good wisdom is sometimes missing is, one, just finances are so different for everybody.
Right.
But two, there's a lot of life between 35 and 55 that is expensive, and putting kids through college.
That mortgage, that first home,
Yeah, that
getting
mortgage
into
at
the
home, yeah, that lake house that you've been dreaming of, the cabin. I mean, there's things that are needs, like you got to get through. There's things that are just the wants, and anything you put into retirement, you have to plan to not touch it
Right.
until 65, 70, 75.
Yeah, I mean, again, the whole retirement. I mean, when I first started in the industry, most large employers had pension plans. Now, it wasn't just the public employers, but it was most private large employers had pension plans. That all shifted back in the late 70s, early 80s to 401ks. Now, the generation that's coming into the employment structure now, they know what's available to them, and they're not, I guess they don't even think about that. But the thing that I'm alarmed at is that nobody is saving appropriately and building cash. In other words, typically you want to save at least 10% of your income. You want to live on 90% of your gross amount, and you want to put 10% aside. And it is hard for a lot of young couples, young people to get to that 10% number.
Yeah.
But
Especially with housing. I mean, we're in Southern California, and housing here is expensive. So
yeah,
when I get this question, I need to be doing this, right? It's not bad advice, to be maxing out a 401k or retirement. But there's a few questions first. The first one, like Randy already mentioned, is the emergency fund.
right.
The emergency fund is what allows you to invest. It allows you to live your life with some peace, knowing that if all your tires go flat, you're not going to have to swipe a credit card and then somehow next month pay off the credit card in addition to everything else. It allows you to just take some cash out of your savings and pay for the emergency. So 3 to 6 months. If you're a business owner, it probably needs to be a little more than that. If you have a bunch of rental properties, it probably needs to be a little more than that. If your life is pretty simple in the sense of your inflow and outflow, then maybe 3, 4 months is on the lower side is fine. But you need to have that just sitting there, not earning a whole lot of interest. It's just
You know,
available.
and if one spouse is staying home taking care of the children, they're not earning income, and the other spouse is working, earning income, and depending upon how tight they are on their budget, those factors kind of come into that
Yeah.
play also.
Yeah, what's
You
the
know,
risk of going down to zero income? If you had two people
right,
working, one gets laid off, you still have one working probably. But if you
right.
only have one wage earner and they were to get laid off, it could go down to zero real quick. So there's the emergency fund. And then the second is what goals do you have between now and retirement? Paying for college,
Right.
buying the beach house, buying your first house, any of those things. And to say, okay, I always like to do with clients is we just do the math. We say, if you want to buy this in 8 years, how much do you going to need?
Right.
How do we back it out? What do you need to put in each month? And start making progress towards that goal. And it doesn't mean that you have to neglect your retirement. And in fact, that's probably where the advice is coming from. Someone who neglected their retirement entirely. So the hard part is the answer is you probably need to do all of it, right? You need to first, get an emergency fund. You need to pay off any sort of credit cards you might have, like non-mortgage debts. You need to bring those down. Car debts, we usually let those sit for a little bit, but depends, the person. But then you have these other goals and ambitions, and to kind of parcel out how much goes each place. And that the only way that that's going to work for most every household is to maximize your budget. To
I think we also need to take into account that when people are younger, they do have other expenses that are critically important, like a mortgage payment or getting into their house and such. But as they get older, their income and those fixed expenses become less and less a percentage of their adjusted gross. Now, in most retirement plans, you're allowed to increase your contribution amounts. Mm-hmm. So you can get up to, you can get up to a higher percentage of your contributions or a higher dollar amount. So maybe where they're capped out right now at 17.5, well, you can get up to like 25,000. And I've done this a lot for clients where they're saying, I haven't saved enough. Well, we take advantage of those higher contribution amounts after 50, 55, and it's amazing. And or if you work an extra 2 years or 3 years other than planned, so you put more money into these retirement, it makes a big difference in the outcome.
And a lot of these, they're not rule of thumb. They're not,
right.
Throw it in the wind and hope for it, or say, oh no, I heard on the radio, I could just do that later. That'll be fine. This is real planning with real numbers for real people, and you have to look at your specific life. I love it when folks have a really good head start. They started early, they got some in their retirement accounts, they got an emergency fund, they started saving for a house. That's setting themselves up for success. And if they have a gap in there where they don't put as much into retirement for a number of years because they're living life and doing these other things, putting kids through school, and then get to their 50s and say, now it's time to double down. We've paid off some debt. We're in a really good spot. Now it's time to really put some of this high income into retirement. They can have a really great, successful future. But it takes some planning and it takes some forethought. So
yeah.
I think,
and you got to hold their feet. I mean, you've got to be committed to your goals. And again, that's where I think we come alongside and we help people. Is we help not only set those goals, but how do you achieve those goals, and not wait to the last minute? Because so many times people just wait and they don't do it.
Yeah.
And what we do is we come alongside of people and we help them establish those goals, and then we monitor them. Are you doing this? Are you doing that?
Yeah, because it's for their benefit, right? It's what they want.
Exactly.
So I think good idea, bad idea. I would say generally, a buddy told me I need to max out my retirement. Although it sounds nice, I think for most people that's not the best first course of action. So I'd say probably a bad idea, I guess.
Well, again, I'm going to come back to this. It depends. It depends on your household. It just depends on your cash flows and such as that. But I do believe you should have an emergency fund. How that's structured and how that is comparable to your retirement account, it's all kind of blended together. And everybody's different. Everybody's unique, and everybody has different abilities to accomplish their goals, right?
Yeah, that's good. If you have a topic you'd like us to discuss on a future episode, you can leave it in the comments below, or you can go to our website. It's retirementunlimited.com.